Hi, the following episode of the Astrology of the Week Ahead was taped before I knew the election results in the United States of America. So if things sound aggressively positive given the situation, that's why. I needed to get ahead of the game so that our team could go on winter break and things could happen in an orderly fashion. And this is what happens sometimes. So I hope that the astrology still lands in a really helpful way. I just don't want you to ever think that I don't take an incoming fascist leader seriously. I take the situation that we're in exceptionally seriously. I think it's going to require all of us to do everything we can in every single moment that we can do it. And I'm here with you. We are in community together. And I just didn't want to have you thinking like, wow, is this so spiritually bypassy? And has Chani totally lost the plot? I haven't. I'm with you. And in the new year, we're going to be doing episodes much closer to the time we actually air them. But until then, please enjoy and see how the astrology lands as I'm talking about it without knowing the type of world we're moving into. I hope you enjoy the episode. It's time to get cozy. It's time to get some snacks. It's time to get emo, and it's time to get irritated. Hello and welcome. This is the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast. I'm your host and your astro bestie, Chani Nicholas. And this Monday, we begin the week of January 13th with a big, old, blubbering full moon in Cancer. Yes, it is still going to want warm and fuzziness. But this is the thing, my loves. This full moon is sitting with Mars. Mars is retrograde. Mars is now in Cancer. And Mars is also this week about to make the very important opposition to the Sun, which will happen on Wednesday, on the 15th. So basically, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're in a very peak moment, meaning that both the moon will be out all night, but also Mars will be. Now, Mars is out all night right now because it's sitting in the opposite sign of the Sun. So when the Sun goes down, Mars comes up. And right now, the moon will also come up with Mars. And whatever the full moon touches, if the full moon is in the same sign as another planet, it becomes part of the elevation of that other planet. So the moon, as we know, especially when it's full, is going to impact our emotions. It's going to signify a moment where there is like a peak experience of something. And the something is usually, how we feel about it. But there is a swell, right? The full moon is like a tide that's rising, and the peak of the full moon is the top of the wave. And then after that, the wave releases. So we're starting the week already at this kind of peak moment. And because Mars is there, it's also going to be peak irritation. Because Mars and the Sun are also sitting in an opposition, it signals a very important piece of the Mars retrograde cycle that began on December 6th. Now we are halfway through it. We're in it until like February 23rd, so it's far from over. But again, we're halfway through. And we're halfway through while Mars is in the sign of Cancer, while the full moon is happening. So I think this is how we need to work with, especially the beginning of this week, especially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even into Thursday, is we want to see what is getting under our skin. It's not bad if something's getting under our skin, but it's good to pay attention to it. I think that on a collective level, there's going to be something about issues that impact families. There's going to be something about reproductive rights and health. There's going to be something about conception. There's going to be something about children, because that is what Cancer governs. That's what Cancer is concerned with. Also food, nourishment, hydration. So we want to make sure that we are well nourished. We want to make sure we are well hydrated. And we really want to pay attention to what house this is happening in our chart. So what part of your chart contains the sign of Cancer? That's where both this full moon happens, and that's where this Mars is retrograding through. That's where Mars will station direct come the end of February. And that's the part of our chart that we're probably going to be experiencing quite a lot of agitation. And I talked last week about it almost being like a kind of quicksand feeling, like we don't want to struggle against something that is challenging if it's only going to entrap us more or ensnare us more. We want to be really strategic about how we work against something, or what we're cutting out, or what we're saying no to, or what we're letting go of. Mars has a way of clearing. And when it's in Cancer, it's like, what do we clear emotionally? Or how can we unclog the emotional system in the body? How can we clear out the congestion? How can we clear out the phlegm in the system? How can we help the inflammation in the body come down? So take note of what happens. And for some of us, it'll be like what is literally happening in our family that will be challenging, or that will be agitating, or that will be the thing that is activating for us. And activating might be uncomfortable, but it's also what gets us into action. So the emotions that are coming up right now, the feelings that are coming up, the discomfort that comes up around this full moon is exceptionally important to pay attention to, because it's telling us what we need to know about our own needs. This is one of those opportunities where we are being asked to reparent ourselves. So, okay, what didn't we get? Fine. How can we give it to ourselves now? And then there's something to be said for like emotional boundaries in more than one way. This is the thing. The full moon happens and it's sitting with Mars. It's also sitting in acute aspect to Uranus and to Neptune. So there's some supportive things that are happening that help us maybe to have a breakthrough and to help us also have compassion for whatever it is we're going through in this moment. And then the next day, kind of at the same time even, Venus, the planet of love and connection that's in Pisces right now, the sign of its exaltation, makes a square to Jupiter, which is fantastic. And maybe an overindulgence in something sweet or grandiose or wonderful, but it's also there to help relieve some of the agitation, I think, some of the agita of this full moon. And also it goes on Saturday to make a conjunction with Saturn. So the theme of emotional boundaries, I think, are pretty important for the week, because the moon and Mars are sitting together. And Mars is what we call a malefic planet. There's two of them. And Venus and Saturn will end up sitting together. And Saturn is the other malefic planet. And malefic planets teach us how to show up for life. They require us to make a big effort with something. They help us do the hard work, which is what helps us to also get to enjoy the best parts of life. So there's something that's quite abundant, and then there is something that's quite strict that happens by the end of the week. And so I just feel like we don't get away with much this week. We've got to face the emotions and the situations and the family dynamics, perhaps, that are agitating and that are annoying and that are impossible to ignore. And then we've also got to work on relationship boundaries, which I think is all saying the same thing, right? We have to be really clear about what our needs are, how to meet them, what to expect in relationships, what we can't expect in relationships, how to set the boundaries we need to set now in the relationships that we're in, so that we can have deep pockets of intimacy, so that we can know that we are a family that can really work through the tough times because we have the tools and the skills necessary to work through the conflicts that are bound to come up. Like, we can't have a healthy family if we're denying things that are happening interpersonally. How many families do you know that might be really great in one way, but in another way, they totally ignore all of these other red flags? Or there's one person in the family that gets away with being abusive, and everybody else in the family system tiptoes around it or makes excuses or enables that behavior. If we look at the systems that we live within in a kind of overarching way, and then we look at the ways in which our families and our internal systems are kind of organized, it's a mirror image, right? We don't talk a lot about how we treat one another. We don't talk a lot about how to actually create families, whether it's chosen family or blood-related family. However you talk about family, you name family, it doesn't matter. Family is the collection of people we say it is. And how do we work through really challenging dynamics in the family unit? Can we? When do we? And how does our family, or how do the families we come from, deny the tough stuff and allow things that are abusive or are painful or are hurtful or are damaging to go on and iterate themselves generation after generation? And what are we here to stop within our own life, within our own mind and body and soul, and maybe even within our family setup? Maybe this full moon for you will be about something that is very specific to your family and the ways in which you are unwilling to carry on a family dynamic or a family pattern. And what does it mean to break with it? What does it mean to allow yourself to be like, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to be a part of. And we talk about this a lot, on the internets. We're all very, very well versed in therapy speak now. And then there are moments that really bring it up for us that we're like, oh, I thought I worked on this. I thought because I worked on this, my mom changed or my dad would be different because I did this in therapy. So then I thought everyone else was also going to follow suit. I mean, that is such a normal thing for us to assume. I don't know why, but I think we as humans will try to work on stuff to change other people when we're really only healing ourselves and changing how we interact with those people or those situations or that pain point. And I do think this full moon brings up a kind of pain point. So the point is for you to understand how you relate to it and how you care for yourself and how you can meet your own needs and how you can be the parent and the guardian and the protector that you needed when you were little for yourself in this moment now, and then see what else can shift. I know it's easier said than done. This is hard stuff. I'm with you. Like, I'm not excellent at it. That's for sure. I'm talking about it, but I still have to do it with you. You know what I mean? And then also the other little pieces of astrology is that on Saturday, Mercury will make a sextile to Saturn, which is really good constructive conversation. And then on Sunday, Mercury will make a sextile to Venus, which is really helpful healing conversations. It's conversations that help to bring things back together, bring relationships back together. So it does seem like we end on a good note. And then the sun changes signs and we move into Aquarius season, which will be a whole other vibe. So biggest thing to pay attention to is the fact that this full moon is conjunct Mars, and Mars is going to make an opposition to the sun on Wednesday and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Even though there's a Jupiter-Venus square in there, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are full of important tensions that help us to tease out the problem, the issue, and help us to understand what we need to cut off or cut out or whittle down or make a really challenging but important decision about. All right, let's move to an Ask Me Anything section of this little podcast and show. If you have a question, leave it in the comment section below this so I can answer it for you. All right, so we got a question about the fact that we don't have planets in every house of our chart. So the question is, if I don't have planets in a certain house of my chart, does that mean that that part of my chart or that part of my life is basically not very active? No, not at all. We can't actually have a planet in every single house in our chart because there's 12 houses. And even if we're counting the modern planets, there's only 10 planets. So all of us have a couple of empty houses. I mean, maybe if you throw the nodes and Chiron and Lilith and the points in there, maybe you have something in every house, but you're not going to have a planet in every house. You just won't. It's not the way it goes. And it doesn't mean anything bad. And it doesn't mean that that part of your chart isn't active and is not important. It is. Every single house in our chart is important, and we live it out. We live it out in two ways. Well, three, maybe four, depending on timing techniques that you use. One way is this. If you have an empty house in your chart, no planets in it, look at the sign of that house. So if you have nothing in Leo, what do? Like the house that contains Leo. Well, you look to your sun because the sun rules Leo. So all you have to do to understand a part of your life through your astrology chart is to go and look at your chart, see if you have any planets in that part of your chart that corresponds with that part of your life. So relationships or career, you would look to 10th house. Relationships, you would look to 7th house. Say you have no planets there. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a career. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a relationship. You're going to look to the sign that's in that house. So say you have an Aquarius 7th house because you're a Leo rising. Well, you look to Saturn. Saturn will tell you everything you need to know about your committed partnerships. The sign Saturn's in, the house it's in, the planet Saturn is talking to, all will tell you everything you need to know about the person, the kind of people that you want to create and be in committed partnerships with. So you want to think about friends, like how do I meet new friends? And I feel like I don't have the kind of friend groups or friendships that I want. You look to the 11th house. Do you have any planets there? No? Okay, great. What sign is in the 11th house? Say it's Pisces. Well, then you would look to Jupiter. Jupiter will tell you everything you need to know about your friends, your friendships, and how to cultivate more friendship and more community in your life. And if you go to the Chani app and you look at where the signs are in your chart and you want to know about some area of your chart, go and read about that planet and it will tell you about that area of life, even though the planet isn't in that house. You know what I mean? So if Venus rules your 10th house, but it's in your 4th house, it will tell you all about Venus in the 4th house, but also will tell you about Venus as ruler of the 10th house. So go check out the delineations in the Chani app and see if they help you to understand whatever part of your chart doesn't have planets in it. All right, y'all, come back next week and we will talk more about Mars retrograde and all of the things that it's up to, because it is in quite a few situations with quite a few planets next week. So we're going to have even more experience working with this placement. We're going to have some help though. I promise you, it's not all challenging. All right. Sending you lots of love, many, many, many full moon cuddles and snuggles and snacks and rom-coms and delightful, unexpected moments. Jupiter and Venus are making a square to each other. This is going to bring about some kind of goodness and some kind of opportunity for connection. Venus is exalted right now, so there is a lot of good happening amidst the things that are a little bit more prickly and irritating, but also like anointing us in terms of whatever it is that Mars retrograde through Cancer wants to initiate us into. Bye for now.